Hello friends, this is Arun, your host from Toppickmedia. As you know that one of the main intention of the Toppickmedia is to bring the talent and the amazing people to the knowledge of the world, to the knowledge of the community. And today I am extremely fortunate to stand in a beautiful gallery, the gallery at North Haven Gardens. And today in this gallery what's going on is you can see add-on on the pictures behind me. All those beautiful amazing pictures are taken by an amazing photographer from our Dallas DFW Metroplex area, Rajesh Jyothiswaran. We are going to talk to him about his journey, about his passion, about the exhibition which is going on here in the gallery at the North Haven Gardens. Welcome Rajesh.
Good morning, and thanks for having me, Arun and Vaibhav. Appreciate the opportunity to talk to you and your listeners and viewers. And
the pleasure is all ours, basically.
Thank you.
So, first of all, Rajesh, tell us something about your journey into this amazing world of photography.
It all began quite by accident a few years ago. It all started, I should say, it started about 10 years ago with my passion for gardening. Totally unrelated to what I am doing now, but it started with my gardening passion. It's kind of fitting that I'm having my first US exhibition at a gallery that is in a nursery, and a very well-known and famous nursery in Dallas, North Haven Gardens, to whom I'm very appreciative of the opportunity to present my work to the world. Going back to how I started, it all started with my passion for gardening, where I actually had converted part of my lawn into a native plant garden. I have a passion for native plants and adapted plants, something that our Dallas area needs, because we usually don't get so much rain and the soil is very hard to grow anything in. So a picture that I had taken 5 years ago in 2013 of my native plant garden went viral on Facebook, and that's when it occurred to me that I have a talent for photography. First of all, it's a validation that I had the eye for photography, and also I was shooting birds and other wildlife that came around my house. I mean, where I live, we have a couple of creeks, so we see a lot of native wildlife. So one day I took a picture of a hummingbird and asked my wife, is it okay if I bought a camera? And she said, yeah, sure. She regrets it, I'm sure, very much, but that's how it started.
Yeah, basically this is the best part of the being creative, is that once you start on one creative journey, it opens the door for unlimited opportunities, unlimited avenues, as we can see in some of your amazing pictures. So from your native Texas garden in your front lawn, you have traveled all across the country. You have captured such a great pictures, as we will see in this interview as well. But all these pictures you have taken, I'm sure that it has taken to a long journey. And tell us something more about this.
That's very true. Like, thanks to my interest in photography, I have been able to travel to places, and also the other way around. Wherever I travel, I try to take some photos. It's almost like buy one get one free. So it works both ways. So some of them happened quite by accident. Some of them happened with a lot of planning. I have traveled to a few places, some of the beautiful places around. I still haven't scratched the surface. There's a lot more beauty in this world that is yet to be explored, and I haven't been to many places myself. But whatever little I have seen, I'm glad to have come back with something that I can go back and look and be happy about, that I had been to those places.
So nature photography, as it is clearly seen from your picture, and at the same time we can also see it's a night photography. So is the night photography is your specific passion, or what kind of photography do you do?
I do both landscape and astrophotography. I kind of think they both go well together. So essentially, we need very clear skies for the night photography, because we don't want too many clouds and be able to see the stars. But the opposite is true for landscape photography. We don't want clear skies, we want some clouds, some color in the sky. So, if you're able to shoot landscape photography, you at least have one thing going on there, a nice sunset or a sunrise. Or if you don't have a good sky, then at least you get astrophotography done. That's again buy one get one deal.
It's a day and a night affair.
Exactly. So the other thing is night photography for me is more of a, I want to say, something more meditative or more spiritual experience for me, to be out by myself in the elements and be able to see things that we don't usually see and we take for granted, especially living in big cities where we cannot see the stars for the most part. So to be able to shoot astrophotography, you need to be in a very dark sky location, at least some place that where there's minimal light pollution, and so these are places that are very few and hard to find these days. They're declining everywhere around the world. There's so few places where you can shoot really good night sky photos. So this gives me an opportunity to go visit those places and also enjoy that kind of environment.
So let's do one thing, is that there are so many pictures, and if we can start talking about each one of them, I'm sure that our listeners would love to listen. But one of the pictures that we'd definitely like to hear the story about that, and specifically the aspect about, you said that we meditated at that particular place. So let's talk about one of your pictures and talk a story about that.
Sure, definitely.
As it is said, a picture is worth 1,000 words. But can you imagine that every picture has a story behind that? Sometimes in this digital world, when we scroll through an image, we do not spend enough time and moments to look into the story behind that picture. One of the great things about Rajesh photography is that every photo he takes, there is always a story associated with that. Let's talk about one of his favorite picture and the story behind that.
Okay. So, yeah, like as you said, a picture is worth 1,000 words, but also 1,000 words are not enough in some cases. So that's why I tend to tell a story, with my images, because otherwise it's just an image. There is no emotion attached to it. So my telling the story brings, adds to the emotion. It should already speak to you, but if it doesn't, then you're missing out something. So that's why I try to tell a story along with the image, and that story usually typically happens to go with what happened that day, how I found a place, what kind of emotions I experienced. Like this picture right behind us over here is one such image. Then this was shot in California. This was shot in Alabama Hills. That's in the foothills of the Sierra Mountains, Eastern Sierras. And we were scouting for a nice foreground element to go with the night sky. And my image is always, the sky is a secondary player. It's a supporting element. It's not the main element. So you need to have a subject. So I was looking for something that was very specific for that location. And this cactus that grows there, it's called barrel head cactus. A barrel cactus actually, or cotton top cactus, that's what it is called. That's been shot by many famous photographers before. I had never seen it myself, so I spent the afternoon looking for something that I can frame that night. And based on the timing and everything, this was going to happen quite late, like maybe around 1:30 or 2 a.m. So we shot at other locations, but I had scouted this and marked it, and we came back here very last thing at night. Now the thing is, I was using a 25mm lens, which does not fit the whole frame. So I decided to do a panorama of this image, and I also wanted to have a very sharp image from foreground all the way to the back. Because if you want the stars to be sharp, then you have pinpoint stars, but you're missing out something on the foreground because your focus is not there. So you have to do something called focus stacking, which is like you take different points and you add them in post-processing. And also night sky being very dark, and you use high ISO. For your listeners or viewers that understand photography, they know high ISO means higher noise. So in order to reduce noise, you need to do something called stacking. of median stacking of the images, so it eliminates the noise, so the picture is not as grainy. So there were two techniques used for this image, both exposure stacking for reducing the noise and also focus stacking to bring foreground to background sharpness all through the frame. And when I was thinking through all these things, how I'm going to bring this, it was like I was in a totally different zone, because I had to like visualize this is what my final image should look like, and in order to do that, what do I do in the field? So it was like almost like I was in a meditative state, focused on like how do I bring this big picture in this one frame, and I cannot do it in one frame, so I had to do 3 frames. So each frame was shot differently with this big picture in mind. So it took me about an hour to get the composition right. So for me, composition is the most important thing, and thanks to some people that have taught me the importance of composition, I focus more on composition now than pretty skies or beautiful Milky Way.
So one of my favorite pictures in this exhibition today is Purple Mountain Majesty. Basically the colors that you can see in this picture is just mind-blowing. The purple color which is coming behind the sky of this beautiful mountain is just an amazing, just a kind of an experience that I would love to be there. But however, not lot many people would know that there is an entire journey between a photo being taken and the photo being presented. Let's talk about the journey and specifically the aspect and the importance of the post-processing of taking a photograph.
This is a great example of when post-processing is something that you need to think about before you shoot the picture. So this is not like you take pictures, come home, and then decide, okay, this is how I'm going to process it. So when you're in the field, you want to visualize like what you want your viewer to experience. And sometimes, despite great technologies that we have, great cameras, great camera sensors and lenses, still they fail to capture what you see. And this has happened to me many times. There will be a fantastic sunset going on, look at the back of my camera, it doesn't capture those colors, but your eyes are able to see those colors. And sometimes the opposite is true too. But to the most part, our eyes do a better job of seeing things the way that we have been provided to see them. So this is one such example. And also, technology has its constraints. For example, if you shoot a picture with a wide-angle lens, which we all shoot for landscape photography, you know that,
Mm-hmm.
and they tend to make molehills out of mountains. So they make big mountains look small,
Yeah.
tall people look short.
Yeah.
You know, or stretch them out. Like,
Mhm.
you know, if we shoot with a wide-angle lens, like us standing here will look like awkwardly top heavy and legs
Yeah.
being very short. So they do the same thing to the mountains. So in order to overcome that, what I employed for this image was a technique called focal length blending. This is one of the rare occasions that I did that. So which basically means that to capture the foreground, I used a different focal length, and to capture the background, I used a different focal length. This image here, the foreground was shot at 24 millimeters, and the background, I believe, was shot around 85 millimeters. Could have been 100, I'm not sure top of my head. But the reason why I did that was at 24 mm, this beautiful mountain, Mount Hood, that's about 11,000, 12,000 feet, maybe more.
Mm-hmm.
It looked small, very small.
Yeah.
So at the back of the camera, you see that's not what I'm seeing there. Like, you know,
Right.
my eyes are able to see this mountain is huge and tall, but on the camera it looks very small because of the wide-angle distortion. So in order to overcome that, sometimes you will have to employ techniques like this, but you need to pre-visualize and plan for that. So that's what I did with this image.
Absolutely, absolutely. So let's continue to explore a little bit more about some more pictures.
Sure.
And let's see. Have you ever been under the star, under the sky where there are millions of stars? As a childhood, one of my best memory is sitting or lying down on the roof of my old house in India, back in India, and seeing those Milky Ways. Alas, I can't see those Milky Ways living in the metropolitan cities such as Dallas. But one of the questions that comes to the mind, Rajesh, is that when I see millions of photographs being published on a multiple social networking website, it's very difficult to find out that which one is genuine, which one has been taken, or which one has been just copied and cropped from one image to another image. So how do we find out that difference, that and really, because I do not want to spend a lot of my time looking into every picture, but I definitely like, as I was talking about this specific picture, that this gives me the childhood memories back. So what is the, how do we identify those genuine pictures, if there is a way?
Okay. I'll answer your question, but let me. You just reminded me something that happened a few years ago when I first shot my first Milky Way shot. That happened at a friend's farm in Ravenna, Texas. About 70 miles from here. I was just starting out and wanted to shoot Milky Way, and my friend told me, "Yeah, I can see stars in my farm. So why don't you come take a look?" So I went there, and my dad was with me, um, and it just happened to go there and like tried a test shot, and for the first time I saw the Milky Way core on the back of my camera, and it was a different feeling, and it was quite a wow factor there. And what was amazing is my dad actually told me that this is the first time that he's seeing so many stars since he was a child, and he's in his late 70s. So imagine like how much light pollution has taken over our lives. Like you said, it's very hard to see any places that are remaining. So that's why it's very important to conserve the dark places that we have. That's one thing that is close to my heart as well. There's a lot of work that needs to be done to change people's attitudes towards what kind of light bulbs they use, how do they put the lights outside that are not putting light out into the sky but into the ground and things like that. But anyway, coming back to the topic that you just mentioned, how do we tell if something is real or not? It's hard to tell. Honestly, there is so much technology out there, so much post-processing skills available, and so much talent in doing those things. So it's very easy for somebody to take multiple images shot in different places and put them together in Photoshop or some other program. Yeah, and claim that it is real. So it's very hard to do that. The only way that you can find out is by actually doing some research yourself. Like for example, somebody claimed a certain picture was taken at a certain famous location, and you want to take the same picture. The only way to know that is to go use some software. There are multiple programs. I use something called Stellarium, which is it is actually very good, and it's free on the computer. On the PC at least it's free. On the web, for the web it's free. And it's a great tool, and it will show you where the Milky Way is at a particular latitude, longitude, or you can even type in the city, and it will, you can type in the time, and it will show you exactly whether it will align or not. So much of our planning also is using that. So if you are planning a trip to go shoot a Milky Way at a certain place, or sunrise even, you want to see where the sun is going to come up that morning. So Stellarium is a great resource. Photopills is another great tool. Starwalk is another great tool. This particular image was actually like it was. There was nothing that was moved around, so the stars literally aligned with the hot creek that night. It just happened to be there at the right time, right place, and again, with like the previous image that I showed, this also required a lot of work because my lens could not fit the whole scene. I wanted to give importance to the creek, the steam that's coming out of the creek, the geysers that are there, but at the same time also capture the majesty of the skies and also the mountains behind. So this was essentially like 3 frames, like in multiple shots. About 25 shots, if I remember correctly, went into this thing. But it is how it was. This is, if you had a wide-angle lens that will capture the whole scene, you would have seen this thing. Maybe not in so much detail, but you would have seen this. So I try not to be a documentary photographer in the sense that I don't take a photo and publish it like it is. Like I am not a film photographer, so I do a fair bit of post-processing. But the post-processing I do is to bring out the details that I want my viewer to see. For example, in this case, the hot creek is the star for me, right? Yeah. It's not the sky. The sky is a great what do you call it, is supporting actor, right. But the creek is the one, and the geyser is the star. So to bring out those details, obviously in post-processing, you bring out the things that are important to you, not as much as the ones that you don't want. So that's how you do it.
Great. Great. So basically, you have talked a lot, many points, and so interesting to see all of these pictures. And of course, as I was talking about, there is always a story behind that. But my own perspective is that keep yourself a little under the limits, because you do not want to get influenced by all those things. Keep your things neat, simple, and focus on some amazing photographers such as Rajesh, because as you see more of their pictures, you will learn more. You will be with the author. I would say you are an author. When you are taking a picture, you are a photographer, but ultimately you are an author, you are a poet at that point of a time, because you are capturing the beauty of the nature at that point of a time. And an author or a poet or a photographer, they are one and the same thing. And before we go, anything else that you would like to talk to about the upcoming photographers that who would like to take this kind of an hobby?
Sure. Again, thanks for having me. I enjoyed talking to you all, and I hope this will make other people believe that they can do the same thing that I did. So, if I tell people that if I can do it, anybody can, because 3 years ago, 4 years ago, I did not know much about photography. I did not know what the exposure triangle was 3 years ago. 2 years ago, I was still shooting in aperture priority and those kind of automated modes. So you can teach yourself things, and there's so much knowledge available. YouTube is a great resource. There's so many blog sites, so many photographers that that are genuinely doing great work, and following them, as you mentioned, is the best way to do it. Again, don't be influenced by fantastic images. If there's something that's too good to be true, it probably is, as they say. So, I'm not saying that it's not art. It is art, and there is a place for that. There is definitely great talent in doing that. But it is, to me, it's not something that you can go take a photo of. You can create it for sure, but you cannot take a photo. If you're starting out, your goal should be able to capture the images. Go shoot composition. Is the most important thing, obviously. Get your composition and your exposure right. Post-processing can come later on. I tell people starting out, go shoot. First shoot every day. Take a picture, at least one picture every day. I wanted to take this opportunity to thank Toppickmedia and Arun and Vaibhav for coming out here and getting me in front of your viewers and listeners. I wish Toppickmedia's team and readers and viewers a very happy new year and great success in the coming years. Thank you.
And we also wish you at the same time, Rajesh, a very happy photography year next year, as you have been winning a lot of accolades and bringing a lot of accolades back home to the Dallas. We wish you a huge success in the coming years, and we wish you to see you on top of your photography world. Thank you.
Thank you.